A strike on an alleged drug smuggling boat in the Caribbean traveling from Venezuela is under scrutiny this morning after it was determined that 2 men on board were still alive but were killed in a secondary strike. So new this morning, the White House is saying this strike was not ordered by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, but rather an admiral following orders. North Central College political science professor William Muck with us now. And Professor, you kind of make things easier for us to understand here because the rules of international warfare, I don't know that hardly anybody, maybe you, is an expert on that. So do you believe that this violated international law governing the use of force at sea? And then if it did, what consequences could the Trump administration face?
Well, absolutely. The second strike is really, really problematic. And the big thing to understand here is how are we understanding the use of force here? Is this a criminal activity or is it an act of war? But the reality is either one, you cannot target individuals who have survived this attack. You're targeting illegitimate targets, right? These individuals have done no crime in terms of specifically after they've been no longer a threat to society. So what we're saying here is that the administration is a little worried about this. And what we've seen today and yesterday is they're playing a bit of the blame game. So the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War is suggesting that this was a decision of somebody in command. We're talking about Admiral Bradley. But everybody's starting to point fingers. And I think the reality is that both legally, they understand that they're in a bad position here, but also politically, this just looks bad, right? If individuals are hanging on the side of the boat, it doesn't feel right to target them. So legally, they're in a bad place, but also I think politically, this is a challenge for the administration.
By procedure or by protocol, what are they to do? Are they to send in a chopper and rescue those people and then render aid? What are they supposed to do?
So if we consider this an armed conflict, so if we think about this as war, so if we say the United States is at war with Venezuela, which I think is also a little problematic, but let's just assume that because that is what the Trump administration has said. If you engage in legitimate violence and then take out the other side, if there are survivors, you absolutely, by the rules of war, have to rescue them. There's no if, and, or buts about that. And what we've seen is since that incident, the United States has done so. So even the administration itself sort of quietly is acknowledging that they handled this first incident wrong, that they had a legal responsibility to go and rescue those individuals. And if we're thinking about this as a armed conflict, technically those individuals would be prisoners of war. And that's why all of these legal clarifications matter and justifications matter. But yes, absolutely, the United States would have some responsibility to rescue and then return those individuals.
And this almost seems trite to ask at this point, but what does the polling suggest about public support for war against Venezuela?
I think that's a really important question because what we're seeing is the American public doesn't feel real comfortable with what's going on. And I think there's a lot of uncomfortable parallels maybe back to the Iraq War. The administration has to be a little more clear about what they're doing. Is the goal regime change in Venezuela? Is the goal to stop the movement of narcotics? Right? I think the administration needs to be a little bit more clear about this so that the public knows. And especially these incidents feel uncomfortable. I think, just even if you aren't paying a lot of attention to this, it feels wrong if the United States is killing individuals hanging on the side of the boat. So it's clear the administration realizes this is a bit of a problem, and I think they're going to try to go on the offensive and reframe this. And it's possible that Hegseth may lose his position over this because that's the easy political solution to find a way to move forward.
What is the legal justification for targeting of these vessels that the administration has put forth thus far?
So they're arguing that these are terrorist organizations, right? And so think back, this is sort of similar to the justifications that were used after 9/11, that these are terrorist organizations and therefore the United States has the ability to use lethal force against them. Now, I will say, like in the international law community, that's not a particularly compelling argument because they're not conventional terrorists. They're criminals. And so what you're using is you're labeling them as terrorists, as enemy combatants, and then using force against them. But it creates all of these hurdles that we're now addressing. If this is armed conflict and they are terrorists, then there are legal rules for dealing with them. So I think the administration needs to be a bit more clear and release some of the justification for why they're doing this, as well as the ultimate goal of this. Is it regime change? Are they trying to get rid of the leader of Venezuela, or are they simply trying to slow down the movement of narcotics?
All right, Professor William Muck with North Central College. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Always good to be here.
Thank you.